So the next section in Savitch C++ book version 10, chapter 6, section 1, I want to talk about using the input stream. Remember, we have data coming into our program, that's input stream. So standard is cin, and we are going to be using for the file to bring data to our program. So remember, we created a in stream using the class if stream to create these. So I have the object, then we connect it to a file. So we created the object, we connected to a file by using a .open operator, and now we can use it. And the usage of this is just like we were doing it with our cin. So before we would do cin, if I want to read two number, one number and two number, and now we can use the in-stream object to do the same thing. So it's not too far from what we were doing. As far as we built our object, from that point on, it's just like what we were doing with our cin. And of course, for our cout or output, would it be exactly the same thing? So what do we do? First thing first, we have to create our object from the class of OFStream, output file stream, and then we have to use dot operator to access the function that's available, and then connect it to a file. And now we're going to use it just like we were doing the cout. So as I mentioned earlier, the operating system deals with the file names and basically how it's going to be sorted or kept in the drive, and if the extension has a special meaning to the operating system or not, that's another thing. But for us, we are using just a text file, and the extension basically doesn't mean anything. It's just for us to use the DAT for data, using TXT for the text. We sometimes exchange them, but as far as it's a text file, it doesn't matter what extension you're going to be using. So it is on the disk. The actual file exists in the disk. So when we are looking for the file, when we want to open the file, the name has to match. So if the system is case sensitive, my file has to match every character with the case sensitive. If my operating system doesn't care about the case, then that's what it is. But let's focus on case sensitive, meaning that if you are having a file in your hard drive, to read it, you have to be sure the case matches, the extension matches. So the newer computers, they have a way of adding an extension. So if they think it is a text, they put the .txt at the end of it, or so on and so forth. And then we have to be careful, because if I add another txt at the end of it, then my file is going to be file name .txt. So that's something that we have to iron out at the beginning to be sure that we know how to read files and write files. So we're going to use the open to connect our object to the file. From that point on, I don't have to worry about it anymore. At the end of the, when we're done with it, we want to close the file. So we want to be sure that nothing's going to be written on it and those kind of things. So the idea is we're going to close it mainly to reduce the chance of file being corrupted. So when we write to a file, sometimes it goes to the cache. It doesn't go directly to the file. The reason for that is file IO is much slower than our computer. So CPU is going to write it to a cache, and cache is going to write to the file, because file is slower than CPU. And if I don't close it, then some of the data might not be there, or it might corrupt it. So closing a file is a good practice. And remember, if I want to go back to the top of the program, every time you open the file, it goes to the top of the program. So if I want to do that, let's say that I'm going to write to a file, and then I want to read it as an input again. So I have to close it and open it again. Every time I want to use the file, it has to be closed and open again. When you open it, it's going to go on the top of the file. So it does close it. So if my program close normally, then the system most likely is going to close the file. But then if it doesn't close normally, it's abnormal or something else has happened, then we're going to have some problem. It's just like you're working on something and then all of a sudden electricity goes out. You don't have your latest updates. So we're going to look at this display 6.1 to go over a program like that. And we can talk about some of these things that we talked about. So the IF stream, that's going to create me an object of InStream from the class IF stream. We do the same thing for our OF class to create an object for it. We're going to use the dot operator and the function, member function. This function is available in this class, IF stream. So when I create an object, all the functions are going to come to me. I don't have to write them. That's the beauty of object-oriented. We're going to call the open, and then we're going to do our file name right here in double quote. So this is going to try to open this file for reading, and it's going to open this file for writing. Again, the name of the file can be anything. It doesn't have to be in file or out file. It's just the name of the file. So it's going to call this in a stream. It's going to read 3 integers from this file, and then it's going to display this, and then it's going to add them together. So this is my original file. So this was my file. It has 1, 2, 3, 4 in it. We're going to be reading only 3 of them. So when we're reading, it's going to read first, second, third. So it's going to read this one. It's going to read this one. It's going to read this one. It's stopping right here. It's not going anywhere. So my next read is going to read this one. And then it's going to go and print this message in the output file. And then it's going to add them together, and it's going to display 6 in there. We're going to work on this together. So I want to stop right here. Again, I want you to think about these questions, write it down somewhere, ask question. You'll go back and figure it out by yourself to see how much of this. You got to write it down, because sometimes I think that I know something, but when I start writing down or try to explain it to somebody else, then I know how much I don't know. Okay, I'm going to stop this one right now, but you can pause it and work on it.